Alright, I just made it through the entrance gate to the Antelope Island Causeway here. That's the road that connects the mainland, I guess, to Antelope Island, which is an island in the Great Salt Lake here in Utah. It's actually not really an island right now, and it hasn't been an island for many years, and that's because the Great Salt Lake is so shallow that very small differences in lake height make a big difference in the shoreline. Meaning the water's low right now relative to the historical record. And so the lake is much smaller in area than it has been in the past. So Antelope Island is not an island. It's connected to the mainland right now. The last time it was a true island was, I think, in 2000, the year 2000. Before that, it would have been the 1980s, I think. But now, Antelope Island is just a cool mountain, I guess. But there'll be cool views from Antelope Island of the Great Salt Lake. So anyways, let's take a look. I bought a Utah State Park Pass, an annual pass today. Fun fact that I learned today, Utah does not fund its state parks through taxes. The state parks are entirely self-funded. So the fees you pay to go into a state park, that's what the state parks rely on here to exist. So pretty interesting. I know in other states it's different. All right, here, just pulled over on the side of the road here. There are so many birds here in these shallow waters. And also a lot of bugs flying around. I don't know if you can hear them. All right, let's go to the other side of the road. The Great Salt Lake is a really important place for birds. A lot of birds migrate from far away and stop here on their way to places to the north or south. The water is shallow and placid, so the reflections are crystal clear. So many birds. The state bird of Utah is actually the California gull, which wouldn't really make sense normally, but the reason for that is the Great Salt Lake. The Great Salt Lake attracts a lot of shore birds, birds that you would normally find by the ocean. See all those little flies? The shoreline of the Great Salt Lake is covered with them. I think they're called brine flies. They are harmless, so you don't have to worry about them, but they're everywhere. So it's no secret that the Great Salt Lake is not a pleasant lake for people. It's never really been known for that. It's 9 times saltier than the ocean. It's very dirty. The ground is mucky. I've got mud caked on my shoes now. It's not good for swimming because, like I said, it's so shallow. You can walk out a mile and be up to your knees. It's just It's not a pleasant place. You get out and you're coated with salt when the water dries. And the one thing that is cool is if you do find a place to swim, you'll find that it will be much easier to float. And that's because salt water is so dense, so you'll be very buoyant. Look at the clouds of birds out there. Do you see that? That is insane. That makes me think of hundreds of years ago, passenger pigeons in the Midwest and in the eastern part of the country. The passenger pigeons would have blackened the sky because they swarmed in the billions. Look at all these birds. Anyways, the passenger pigeons went extinct, which is remarkable. They did number in the billions, like I said, but they needed to all be together, I guess. They really were all found in like one or two groups. And that's why, you know, they blackened the sky when they flew ahead, because there were so many. But they were hunted to extinction. Now they don't exist. So anyways, my point is that it's cool that you can still see such large, not swarms of birds, flocks of birds in the country still. You just have to come to a place like the Great Salt Lake, and also they won't be passenger pigeons, there'll be other types of birds. I don't really know what kinds of birds they are, the ones that are in those massive flocks, but I've seen clouds of them and it's really beautiful. There's so many different kinds of birds here. Lots of plovers or sandpipers, those types of birds. But I need to get the field guide to really identify a lot of these and spend some time. This is a really cool place if you want to do photography or, you know, bird watching, anything. Really pretty. I just missed it, but there was a huge, really well choreographed flock of birds. I mean, I know it wasn't choreographed, it's just natural. It's like fish in the sea. This is just the mirrored version of it. But a big flock of birds flying in a beautiful cloud, multiple clouds. And it was so graceful, but they all just landed right here in the water. So I didn't capture it on camera, but you can see how many birds there are here in this wetland. An extension of the Great Salt Lake, so it is salty. You know what I think I'll do is I'll come back tomorrow or some other time and get some more footage, because the sun's gonna set in like 10 minutes and I'm gonna run out of light. So there's not gonna be much for you guys to see, but there's a lot more to check out. I haven't even made it to the island, Antelope Island. You can see the mountain peak of it over there. So there's a lot more to see. You know what's funny? You know how I captured a video of the brine flies, or whatever they're called, those little flies on the shore? The birds, the flocks of birds that sit by the shore are like a bigger version of that. That's what it looks like from a distance. It's interesting. They look like little flies, like a bunch of just little bugs dotting the water. Yeah, there's a lot of food in these waters. I think brine shrimp number in the trillions. Brine shrimp are one of the only things that can survive in water this salty. They're also known as sea monkeys. Yeah, beautiful place. That's constantly changing. Like I said, small changes in water level. In fact, over the course of a year, the water goes up and down maybe like 5 feet. And another reason why the Great Salt Lake is not very hospitable to people is the lake smells really bad. And even if you're away from the lake, if the wind's blowing in the right direction, it'll smell bad. It smells like rotten eggs or sulfur or something. It has to do with some sort of chemical reaction that's happening with the lake. I've got to do some more research, then get back to you. But yeah, it does smell bad. There's a long list of reasons of why the Great Salt Lake is pretty nasty to people. Especially when it's at a very low level like it is right now. But yeah, the smell is definitely a big one. Just saw a deer off the side of the road. Anyways, I'm heading back into the residential areas, but I will be back for more Antelope Island content, more Great Salt Lake content. All right, it's the next day, and I made it to Antelope Island, made it across the causeway to the actual island, although it's not really an island right now, like I was explaining yesterday. In fact, the beach, the sand beach, is right over there. Or at least that was historically where the maintained beach was for this state park. But you can see how far the water is receded away from the beach. It's not close to where the sand beach is, and that's because the water level is very low right now, low compared to the historical normal. As I was explaining yesterday, the Great Salt Lake is a very shallow salt lake. At its deepest, when it's full, it's like 30 feet deep. And that's very shallow for a lake of this size. That's because the lake bed is very flat. So over the course of the year, the lake level goes up and down at least a few feet. And that's because the Great Salt Lake is primarily fed by spring snowmelt from the surrounding mountains. So in the springtime, the lake level will come up a few feet. And since the lake bed is so flat, that will make a big difference in the shoreline. So the shoreline of the lake will come in substantially. But then over the course of the hot summer, as a lot of evaporation occurs, the lake level drops a few feet, and that'll push back the shoreline a lot. So just a few feet of vertical difference in the elevation of the lake makes a huge difference in the horizontal placement of the shoreline of the lake. It could be hundreds of yards difference just over the course of the year. And of course, different years, because different years have different amounts of snow, different amounts of evaporation, etc. Different years will see different maximum levels of the lake, different minimum levels of the lake. In 2022, just a couple years ago, the lowest recorded elevation of the lake was observed. And so it resulted in the smallest surface area, small size of the Great Salt Lake that people here have observed in modern history, at least. The highest lake levels in modern memory were observed in the 1980s because of a really wet period in the West. And that actually caused a lot of issues. It flooded a lot of areas around Salt Lake City. and they actually had to build this big engineering project where they pumped water out of the Great Salt Lake and into the Bonneville Salt Flats. And so it kind of was reminiscent of thousands of years ago when Lake Bonneville covered this entire area. So Antelope Island itself, the plot of land, is really just a broad prairie with hills, very few trees. It's a very dry place. There's a lot of sagebrush. There is a herd of buffalo, a herd of bison on the island. There's also deer and pronghorn antelope. I just saw a big jackrabbit in this little area. I don't know where it went. Maybe it went underground. And then somebody told me that there's burrowing owls here, and that's something that people have been trying to get a look at. So you can see the buffalo have been here. So you can still walk down to the water and go in the water if you'd like. It's just not very pleasant because it's muddy, there's a lot of flies, it smells bad. When you get out, you'll be covered in salt, it dries on your skin. The good news is that they have showers there for you to use by the beach access. So you can see the causeway out there, and then the Wasatch Mountains to the east. That's the biggest mountain range in the area. Most people in Utah live along the Wasatch Front. Looking east from Antelope Island right here, you can actually see Salt Lake City way in the distance. So once upon a time, all of that white shoreline, that exposed lake bed, that was all underwater. Probably the last time that all of it was underwater was the year 2000. I have not seen any buffalo yet. Oh, I think I see him. That's pretty funny, actually. As soon as I say I haven't seen any buffalo, I see them. So let's see if we can get some good shots of them. There are quite a few of them just down there by the lake bed. These rocks right here are really cool. This is a cool area. So again, all of that white stuff, that's exposed lake bed. It used to be underwater, but now it's completely dry. It'll take a lot of really wet years to bring water back to this area. I should note that the main reason for the low water levels in the Great Salt Lake, at least what is responsible for the long-term decline of the Great Salt Lake, is human consumption. Humans divert a lot of the water, a lot of the inflow that would have otherwise made its way into the lake naturally and replenished the water levels. So the long-term decline of the Great Salt Lake is basically just because humans are diverting the water before it can get to the lake. The other main reason for the low lake levels would be the weather. The Southwest in general has been in a drier than what is considered normal condition since about the year 2000. And the current drought is considered the worst period of drought this region has faced in like the last 1,000 years or more. But by and large, the reason why the water is so low at the Great Salt Lake is because of the human diversions. Only a tiny percentage of what would naturally flow into the lake actually does make it into the lake. So that's really what's at the root of the current situation. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. It's about 100 degrees right now, so I'd like to cool off. Okay, I saw a little artifact here on the salt flat. I'm gonna go take a look. Just a cool area in general to walk around. All right, take a look at this. This looks really old. Like it's a remnant from when this was underwater. It's cool.